Welcome to another NJThrives small business webinar. If you haven't been here before, these are weekly webinars that we create for small businesses in New Jersey to help you start, grow, and thrive. I am your host, Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC specialty consultant and CEO at NalomaMedia.com. Now, the NJSBDC, we're a statewide program. We're funded by the SBA partners to help small businesses in New Jersey with three things. So there's no cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources. As always, we go over a few small business headlines. We jump into the webinar, and throughout the webinar, you're free to plug in questions into the Q&A section, or just wait till the end and we'll answer in our little Q&A session. Now, as for the headlines for the week, the SBA has announced a funding opportunity, and it's to provide training to service-disabled veterans. So basically, this is going to be for nonprofit organizations, state and local governments, private sector firms and institutions of higher learning, to create some type of program for entrepreneurship training to service-disabled veterans. So there is information here on how to apply if your business is, first of all, eligible. And yeah, we'll drop the link into the chat so you guys have access to that if you're curious. Now, the second one here, now this has been a long-standing grant, and the great thing is that they keep adding money to it. So that's always good. It's the NJZIP. So they're going to be adding an additional $45 million and also widen the eligibility. So more money, and it's easier to get, which is all great. And basically what this does is you're able to, let's see, we have the NJZIP program here. I want to make sure I know exactly what you're getting, but basically it's for a vehicle. Has to be within a particular area. Can't seem to find exactly where that is right now. But we'll leave the links into the chat. We should also include this one. I'll drop this one into the chat as well, not just the article. All right. So yeah, that's the NJZIP program. So if you're in any of these areas, I would look into this. And if your business needs some type of heavy duty vehicle, this is a very interesting opportunity. Now, those are our headlines for the week. Some things to keep in mind for today's webinar is please type your questions into the Q&A box. If it's in the chat, it might get lost. So Q&A box is best, and you're also able to ask questions anonymously in there. Number two is to complete a 3-minute survey. So once the webinar closes out, you'll get redirected to a survey page. Once you fill that out, you'll get access to the slides and the on-demand webinar. Now, without further ado, welcoming back Tim Peter to show us how to do email marketing for small business.
Hi, Christian. How are you? Good to see you.
Yeah, same here, same here. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and the floor is yours.
Sharing mine. Fantastic. Everyone can see my screen. All right. We're going to dive right in. We have a lot to cover, and I want to start by asking you a question. Would it shock you if I told you that every single day there are 333 billion emails sent? Every day, 333 billion emails. I don't know about you, but that's a big number. That freaks me out. I thought I'd make it even smaller just so we can get our head around it a little more easily. And you know what? It's still every hour 13,875,000,000 emails. That's still a huge number and so much to try to take in. So I thought, what if I broke it down to every minute? Well, every minute there are 231.25 million emails sent every minute. I thought, my gosh, that's a huge number. That is too big a number still. What if we talk about every second? Well, every second there are still 3,854,166 and 2/3 emails sent every second. That's insane. And it is very fair for you as a small business owner, as a small business marketer, as a person who's trying to get your customers' intention to say, how in the world can we possibly use email to be successful in a world where people get millions of emails every second or hour or day or year? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how do you use email appropriately in such a way that you can actually make it work for you and work for your customer. Because it's not enough to send emails to your customers. You have to send emails your customers look forward to. This is a screenshot of just the promotional emails that I received between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. this past Sunday. And you can see that's a lot. The other thing that you really ought to note is I didn't click on any of them. Now, hopefully you're not looking at that and going, this is hopeless. This is not even worth trying, because that's not my point. My point is that your customers get a lot of email. They get a lot of people trying to get their attention. And if you do it right, you will be the one they will look forward to. You will be the one they will click on. You will be the one that they engage with, whether you're the very first one they receive, or you're the 3,854,166 and 2/3 that they got that second. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, I want to start with something very, very basic. If you don't have an email list at all, there are a lot of good tools out there. This is by no means meant to be a comprehensive list. These are just some good quality systems out there. MailChimp has been around for a long time. It's focused on small and mid-sized business. It integrates well with WordPress. If you have a WordPress website, it integrates with other systems as well. You can make it integrate with Shopify. If you're using Shopify, it's not necessarily perfect for that, but it does an okay job. It's got a form builder, and we'll talk about why that matters a little later. And its pricing can go from fairly inexpensive to pretty expensive over time. But it's not terribly, terribly expensive. And when you get the slides, there's a link to that there. Sendinblue is another really good system, great for small businesses. It's very, very inexpensive to get started, and it doesn't get super expensive as you go up. It integrates well with Shopify. It's got a form builder, and again, it's not super expensive. Drip is a very, very cool e-commerce focused email platform. So if you're doing e-commerce, you're selling products online, then, this can be a really cool one. It is a little more expensive than some of the other ones to get started, and it can get a little pricey as you grow, but it's well worth it if you're an e-commerce focused business. If you're a somewhat larger business, if you're looking for an all-in-one solution, right? You want to tie together your email marketing, your customer relationship management system, your sales process, even your service process, HubSpot is an excellent solution. It integrates with WordPress. It integrates with Shopify. It actually has its own content management system, so you can build your own website or web pages there. It's got form builders. It starts out fairly inexpensive. In fact, they have a free version of it, but it can get very, very, very expensive. So depending on the size of your company or how you're planning to grow, make sure it's the right thing for you. And Salesforce is a good competitor to HubSpot. And everything I just said about HubSpot, except for the CMS, is true for Salesforce as well. So these are all good options. If you don't have email at all today, I would encourage you to take a look at least one of these, as well as some of their competitors. There's some really good stuff out there. Emma's good, Constant Contact is good, but these are the ones that I see most regularly and can say are really, really solid. Now, one of the things I want you to be aware as we talk about this is everything we're doing with email is built around how do we drive revenue for our business, how do we drive sales for our business, and how do we provide a great customer experience for our customers. Obviously, the part you care about the most is the revenue. Not that you don't care about providing a great customer experience, but you want to start with how do we get really great revenue. And so if you've seen any of our past webinars, be aware you've seen these next couple of slides before, but I just want to have the same baseline for those who have not. We think in terms of the digital revenue formula, where you've got visitors, you multiply that by your conversion rate, you multiply that by your customer lifetime value. That's what leads to revenue for your business. So in practice, if you have 1,000 people that you're reaching out to, they convert at a 5% rate, they spend $100, that's a top line revenue of $5,000. Now, for your business, maybe you multiply this by 10, maybe you multiply this by 100, maybe you multiply this by 1,000. That would be great if you got a $5 million business, right? Just use the multiplier that works for you. I just wanted you to think in terms of these numbers conceptually for now. Well, the way you drive growth is first, you can try to increase your visitors. If we go from 1,000 to 2,000, hey, we double our top line revenues, even if we keep everything else the same. Or you can increase your conversion rate. If we go from 5% to 10%, we get to 10 grand, even if we keep everything else the same. If you increase your customer lifetime value, so instead of spending $100 with you, they spend $200 with you, you go to 10 grand, even if we keep everything else the same. And of course, what you want to try to do is multiply all of these, get them all to grow, and see your top line revenues grow even further. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how you use email to do these things. Now, of course, you've also probably heard me refer to the hub and spoke model, where your website and email list are the hub, and things like your Google business profile or Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube or third-party sales, third-party sites, or the future things that come down the road all apply. Well, today we're going to focus on the hub, your email list, and to a much lesser degree, your website. We're focusing on starting with your email list. Why do we care so much about the hub? Because you control it. You own it. You have the ability to connect with your customers directly without somebody else who's going to make you pay a toll to talk to your customers, right? So we're talking right about the hub, the core of everything you do. Now, there are 4 C's I want you to think about with email success. So first, collect. Next, cultivate. Next, convert. And next, cleanse, right? So this is something I want you to think about in terms of how you do this. Remember, collect, cultivate, convert, and cleanse. Okay, and we're going to talk about how to do each of these. One of the things I want to point out here is that this process is not new. It's not new at all. This has been around for a long, long time. It predates email. And you're going, wait a second, what do you mean it predates email? Well, direct mail uses the same basic process. And direct mail has been around since, I don't know, the Sears catalog in the 1890s. This is not new. And that's a good thing. Now you're probably saying, why is this a good thing? This is not new. Because if in a couple of years we stop using email and we send people SMS marketing, or we send people, marketing through Slack, or we send people marketing through Facebook Messenger, or through, some other messaging platform, you're still going to want to do these same actions. I'm going to say that again because that's really important. This process, I'm showing it to you based on email, but you're going to be able to use this no matter how you have some way of messaging your customers directly. You want to collect the way you contact them. You want to cultivate your list. You want to convert the people on that list, and you want to cleanse the list regularly to make sure you're protecting your customers' data as well as your business profitability. Okay, so this is something you can use again and again and again. All right, so let's start with collect. There is a very, very simple rule of email marketing and any kind of outbound marketing, whether it's direct mail, whether it's messaging, any of these, SMS, it's all the same first rule, which is without a list, you have no one to market to. You can't market to people you haven't got information for. So we always must be growing our list. We must be thinking about how do we add people to our list. There's an old rule of thumb. Again, this is stuff that's been around for a long time that suggests 40% of the success of your email marketing program will be based upon the list itself. 35% will be based on the subject line, and we'll get to that in a little bit. And 25% will be based on the offer or the message that you have within the email. Now, if you're thinking about this, you might go, wait a second, 40% in the list? That's crazy, right? Well, it's kind of not. Think about it. I like to play guitar. I like to play music. I like to go to concerts. If you send an email to me about, some cool new guitar or some great concert that's coming to town, some act that I really want to see, that's much more likely that I'm going to want to open that email. If you send me an email about, something that I'm not particularly into, I don't know, butterfly watching, I'm probably never going to open that email. Doesn't matter how many emails you send me. Doesn't matter how great your subject line is. It doesn't matter how great your message or offer is. I'm not the right person. I'm not a good part of your list. So who you send the email to, who you put your message in front of, is the most important part, more than what you tell them or what you sell them. Okay, so keep that in mind. We want to have a list of the people we want to talk to. All right, so keep that in mind every time we talk about this. Another fundamental principle that you want to be aware is that fundamentally, if your list is not growing, it's shrinking. And you're going, what do you mean? What does that mean? If your list is not growing, it's shrinking. Well, there are two metrics that we pay attention to a lot. The first one is called churn rate. Churn rate is the percentage of subscribers who no longer receive your email. Either they opt out, they change their email addresses. Maybe they sent it to a work email address and they change jobs and have a new work email address. They claim your spam, they unsubscribe. We have seen over the years that churn rate tends to average about 30% per year across all email lists. Yours might be a little higher, it might be a little lower, but it tends to be about 30% per year. Now, what does that look like in practice? Well, if you have a 10,000 person list, and again, maybe your list is 100 people, maybe it's 1,000 people, maybe it's 100,000 people, but you can use this as your baseline. 10,000 people. Next year, your list will be 7,000 people because of churn. The year after that, it will be 4,900 people because of churn. The year after that, it will be 3,430 people. So in just 3 years' time, 2/3 of your list is going to go away if you're not continually growing your list. So if your list is not growing, it's shrinking. There's also a reality called list fatigue. Now, list fatigue are the subscribers who don't open, they don't click through, they don't convert. Think about all those emails you saw in my inbox before that I didn't click on a single one. Some of those people are emails I subscribed to a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that I'm just never going to open again because I don't care. I don't care so much, I don't even bother to take the time to unsubscribe. It's not spam. There's actually a term people use for this. We call it bacon, right? Because it's kind of like spam, but better, right? Because I'm not going to say they're spam. I'm not going to say, oh, these are bad people. I'm just not going to bother. I actually wish we had a better term because I think bacon is way, way better than spam. And if it was bacon, I would open that email so fast, it's not even funny. But the point being that list fatigue is a very real thing. List fatigue is something where people stop paying attention, and you've got to watch out for that. List fatigue, in fact, is probably at least as high as churn rate, if not higher, which means that these numbers are actually twice as bad as what we see. Okay, so you might get to 3,400 in 2 years instead of 3 if you're not actually growing your list all the time. Remember, if your list isn't growing, it's shrinking. So the question this probably brings up for you is, well, how do I grow my list? How do I capture email addresses? And there are lots of ways you can collect email addresses. You've seen these, but I want to show you some examples. The first thing you can do is you can simply ask people for email right when they show up on your site. These are 2 sites, that I'm showing. Cornbread is a great little soul food restaurant in Newark. I love the place. And right when you show up, they say, hey, join our email list, right? There's another place called Perch, really cool little shop. Again, right when you show up, they ask you to provide your email address right when you get there. Now, notice what they're both doing. This is a good practice generally. The specifics depend on your business, but they're saying, hey, join our email list and we'll give you a free piece of cornbread the next time you come into our restaurant. Very cool idea. I like that. They clearly have thought about, can we afford to give people a free piece of cornbread? Sure we can. Perch, they say, hey, save 10% on your first purchase once you sign up for our email. Again, they have calculated what is an email address worth to them for their business and said, we can afford to give a 10% coupon to these folks in exchange for an email. They're trading value. They're not just saying, give us your email or we won't let you do anything. They're saying, you can join. Here's the X if you don't want to, but let me encourage you to join by offering you something of value in exchange for you providing your email address. The other thing I really like about this a lot, is notice what they're asking for in this form. One field. Give us your email, subscribe. And I even like the Perch one a little better because if you don't want to subscribe, there's a no thanks and the X. They're giving you 2 different ways to say no and only one way to say yes. In this case, that's friendlier because they're saying, all we need is your email address. You don't want to, easy peasy, just click the no thanks and you're good to go. So think in terms of, are we providing value to our customer in exchange for that email address? And are we giving them an easy way to say no thank you if they're not ready to? Perfectly fine, particularly when you're hitting people right when they enter the site. Now, another way, you see this all the time in B2B. This is my website. We need to redesign this page. I think it could be much better, but we're actually trading content for your email address. You want this white paper? Go ahead and give us your email address, download the white paper, give the information. Okay. So it's something where you can easily say, I'm going to give you something of value in exchange for you giving us your email address. Another example you see all the time is a dedicated opt-in. These are typically something you find usually a little bit further down the page because you want people to do something before, you have something you want to do more. This a hotel that I work with, they actually want you to reserve. So I've scrolled down about 2/3 of the way down the page, but notice, go ahead and sign up for specials and more. Give us your name, your email address, and your zip code. They could ask for a little bit less, but they do a good job here. And then this is another store that I know. Again, just have a simple form, give us your email address, and go ahead and subscribe. Very simple, very, very common, right? Great idea. The last thing you can do is, where do customers provide email addresses? Well, on checkout. You see this all the time. These are examples from much larger companies, but I'm using them because you know why they do this? Because they know it works. Oh, you can proceed as a guest, or you can give us your email address right here, or you can sign in, and I want to go ahead and give you my email address. Good stuff. Very simple process. Very, very common. By the way, I happen to see if I can comment on something that came up in the Q&A. Somebody said, am I the only one who is against pop-ups coming back in the form of layers? Christian, you're not. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of pop-ups. I'm not the biggest fan of this technique, right? I can completely understand the question and why some folks don't like this. Here's the funny thing about it. It works. I've done e-commerce and I've done web stuff for 25 years. I have seen company after company say, we hate pop-ups, and then we try this out and we find that it works really well without hurting conversion rate or without hurting other problems, right? Other business objectives. So you should pay attention to, do we only do this in certain cases? Do we only do this periodically? There's most tools provide the ability to measure something called exit intent. So we only provide this pop-up. We only provide this overlay when we see that people seem to be getting ready to leave the site. And you can do it where you say, we only want to do this. Do it for just 10% of your traffic and see if you notice a difference in terms of your business metrics like conversion rate and the like. If you do, don't use it. In my experience, that tends not to be the case. People say they hate it, but they come in and either the offer makes sense to them and they give you their email address, or they just click the X and don't even pay that much attention to it, and it doesn't affect their experience overall. Again, please do pay attention. Please do watch it. But you know, it's not usually something that we see hurt business results. So the question I would ask is, where do you ask customers to sign up for email on your site? Take a minute and think about this, you know, as we're moving on, and start to say, are we asking people when they enter? Are we asking people when they check out? Are we providing them some sort of content or some sort of additional information? Do we have a dedicated opt-in? I would strongly recommend, if you're not doing any of these, pick one and do that next week. If you're already doing one of these, take a look and see if you can add one more. Because, as we know, without a list, you have no one to market to. And if your list is not growing, it is shrinking. So we've captured email addresses. Now let's talk about how we cultivate. How do we grow that relationship? If you think about many commerce relationships, they can be, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? A little transactional, a little one-sided, a little short-term, kind of like Tinder can be, right? Nothing against Tinder, but you know, sometimes we're going on Tinder because we're saying, hey, I'm not looking for Mr. Right or Ms. Right. I'm looking for Mr. Right now or Ms. Right now, right? And maybe when we think about our customer, we shouldn't be thinking about, you know, the short-term transactional relationship. We should be thinking about the fairy tale romance. We should be thinking about the Hallmark movie. We should be thinking about, how are we going to be the prince or the princess or the king or the queen or the heir to the throne or the billionaire who attracts our life partner for as long as it makes sense for both of us, right? But we're thinking about deepening the relationship between our customers and ourselves. Now, cultivating your contacts, cultivating your email list deepens the relationship with your brand. You want to think in terms of stages of a couple. Notice before when I showed you those email forms, pretty much all of them just asked for the email address. Because we're thinking about it like we're dating somebody. You know, if the first time you went out on a date, I've been married, by the way, I want to be very clear. I've been married for 28 years, coming up on 29 years. So it's been a long time since I went on a date. And I'm pretty sure this is still true, though. If you were to go on a date tonight with somebody and you sat down with them and they asked, "Hi, tell me all about yourself. How old are you? How much do you weigh? Do you have kids? Were you planning on having kids? Are you thinking about having kids in the future? How many kids do you want? What would you name your kids if you had them? What can we name them after me?" You'd be like, wait, what? You'd be freaking out. That'd be the creepiest thing that ever happened. So think instead, first meeting, what's the least amount of information I need for us to continue the conversation? I need an email address. That's it. Give us your email address. We'll keep the conversation going. Maybe in a subsequent thing, it's more like a first date. We can ask them for another question. You want to offer specials to your customer for their birthday. Hey, send us your birthday. Here's a thing to sign up here and give us your birthday, and we'll send you a coupon on your birthday for our product or service. If you're a B2B person, you might say, send us information about, sorry, I've completely drawn a blank now, of course. I only rehearsed this like 12 times and now I've completely drawn a blank on my example. But, send us the kinds of products you're interested in, or send us information about where you're looking to grow your business, what challenges your business have. Get one more piece of information and maybe give them something of value in exchange for that. Here's a white paper. Here's a coupon. Here's a value add, like a free piece of cornbread, something along those lines. Then maybe you get your dating. Then maybe you get engaged. Then maybe you get married. But it's not a one-time proposition. We're thinking in terms of how do we deepen the relationship over time. Now, I'm going to answer a question in the Q&A now because it's sort of relevant at the moment. Somebody asked, how often should we be sending emails? The answer is as often as your customers want to see them. Now, I realize that's a bit of a cop-out answer, but people will tell you, oh, send emails once a month. Oh, send emails every 2 weeks. Oh, send emails, only once a quarter. The answer is it really depends upon the nature of your relationship with your customer. So a customer who said, you know what, I want you to send me information about, deals around my birthday. I want you to send me information about deals around my anniversary because I provided you that information. I want you to send me emails related to, specific promotions and offers that you're running. Maybe you run a special every week. Send them an email once a week. You should only send them emails if you have something worth telling them. You probably want to send emails about once a month, but I know some very successful businesses who are B2B companies. They sell to large businesses and things along those lines, and they send an email maybe once or twice a quarter because they have new research they want to share with their customers on their email list about the industry. So it only makes sense to send it about once every 6 weeks, once every 8 weeks, once every 12 weeks. I know plenty of boutiques, plenty of hotels, plenty of restaurants who send out an email every single week. We're a restaurant. We're sending an email with our weekly specials, that we're having on Friday night and Saturday night, or even better, here's our specials we're having on Monday night, because that's a night we need to put more people, we need to put more butts in seats. We need more people to show up at the restaurant. So here's our Tuesday night special that we have, we're closed on Monday or something along those lines. And so every week on Tuesday, we send out an email that talks about what's on special tonight to bring people in. So it really just varies based on your list and based on who your customers are and what they want to hear. Now, speaking to what they want to hear, we talk about the subject line. That is the second most important part, right? We have to get people to open. So if you're not familiar with the subject line, that's the thing that shows up right here. When I see this email in my inbox, these are all subject lines. And we need people to interact with subject line, because if they don't interact, they don't open. And the metric we pay attention to here is something called open rate, the percentage of people who open the email, who click on it, who read the contents of it, right? They have to click here to see this. There's some things that are going on under the hood in terms of the way Apple handles this on iPhones. Some businesses have things called proxy servers that automatically open every email. So your open rate can be challenging. What you want to do is pay attention to what it is over time. There was another question, it got cleared out of the Q&A, but somebody asked, what is a good open rate for a business? The answer is a better one than you had the last time you sent emails, or a better one every month, or a better one every 6 months, or a better one every year. I've seen open rates that are very good that are 5%. I've seen open rates that are very, very good that are 20% or 30%. But usually that 20% or 30% might be, hey, we're sending that special to people on their birthday. The number of people we sent it to was, 100 people out of a 10,000 person list because we only had 100 people whose birthday was today. Now, if you're saying, how do I send a different email every day? We'll get to that, I promise. But what you want to see is my open rate going up over time? There are also things you can Google. You can look to see what is the industry average open rate for specific businesses. So just do a search for industry average open rate, restaurants, industry average open rate, travel, industry average open rate, consulting, industry average open rate, shops, retail, right? And those will help you see how are we doing relative to the industry average. If you're doing better than average, great. Don't stop trying to get it to get higher still. You're always looking to improve. Another metric we care about is something called the click rate or the effective click rate. That's the percentage of people who click once they open the email. Now, I like what's something called effective click versus click. Click simply means how many clicks did we get? How many emails did we send? Divide the two by one another. We got 10 clicks, we sent 100 emails, we have a 10% click rate. That's a fine metric. I prefer to look at something called effective click, which is first you say, what's our open rate? So we send 100 emails, 20% of those people opened, 10% of those, 10 people out of those 20 who opened clicked. That's a 50% effective click. They're telling you the same thing, but we know if they didn't open, they didn't click. So what do we care what the clicks were from all the people who didn't open? We know that's 0. I prefer to look at what we call effective rate as opposed to just click rate. Both are fine. Make sure you're measuring how are we doing over time. And then, of course, conversion rate are the people who actually took an action that improved your business. They purchased, they called, they submitted a lead form, they did something that actually matters to your business. So how do we get them to open? How do we get them to care about the subject line? Well, there's a few things we need to think about. And this is true whether we're caring about open or click. We want to remember, as we've talked about in past webinars, that content is, was, and always shall be the king. It has to be content that matters to people. We're going to talk more about that in a second. We want to remember that customer experience is queen. And again, the customer experience, if you're sending me something that I don't care about, and you'll know this because they don't click, they don't open, then clearly you're not providing a good experience for the customer. And then the last, data is the crown jewels. And we're going to talk much more about data in a minute. But first, I want to talk about content. Content and customer experience, We have to remember that more than half of all emails are read on a phone. People are reading emails on their phone more than half the time. Now, when we hear people say, nobody reads, it's not that they don't read, it's that they're reading on a screen that's only this big, and they're reading on a screen that fills, a tiny percentage of their field of vision. There's a lot of distractions going on around people. They might be reading this on a bus. They might be reading this on a subway. They might be reading this in the back of an Uber. They might be reading this in a club when, their friends are all around them chatting, right? There's a lot of distractions. We want to keep the messages simple. We want to write our subject lines. We want to write our content for people to read on their phone. If you have a 3-syllable word in your writing, try to turn it into a 2-syllable word. Try to turn it into a 1-syllable word. Try to make sure you never have more than 3-syllable words in a single paragraph if you can avoid it. You know, if you're in B2B, there's often industry jargon that can be very wordy. So try to make every other word super, super simple. We want to think in terms of snackable, we want to think in terms of shareable, and we want to think in terms of sharp. I'm going to start with sharp. Sharp, get to the point. That's it. Get to the point. What is your point for every word you write, for every sentence you write, for every paragraph you write? If it's not clear, make it sharper. We want to make it snackable. We want to make it something that people can easily digest. If there's a big wall of text, I'm going to scroll right past that really quickly, right? Use bullets, use headings, use things that make it very easy for me to see quickly on my phone while things are happening all around me. Oh, I get this. I can take it in and consume it easily. And make it shareable, meaning A, make it something that's easy to share. You know, is there a forward this to a friend, right? Lots of people do things. Yeah, I want to go to this restaurant tonight. I'm going to text this to my wife or email it to my wife. So I want to make it easy for me to share that email. Also, make it something I care to share. Why do I even care? People share things that make them look smart, funny, intelligent. You know, the old joke, you can never be too rich, pretty, or thin. So things that make them look rich, things that make them look pretty, things that make them look thin, things that make them look like what their friends want them to look like. Make it easy for them to share in a way that they'll look good. And if you do those things, they probably will. I want you to take another moment and think about, what emails do you open? What emails do you click? Think about the ones that speak to your interests. And this is really an old technique. This has been around in advertising for years and years and years. Create something called a swipe file. Pay attention to the text that people use in their subject lines that you clicked in. You find a subject line that you really like, keep a copy of that in a Word document or in a Google Doc. You see an offer that really appealed to you, keep a copy of that in a Google Doc or in a Word doc. You see an image that really appealed to you, a call to action that really appealed to you, keep copies of all of those. And when it's time for you to do your next email, swipe that idea. Don't use the exact verbiage. Don't use the exact text. We don't want to violate anybody's copyright here. We don't want to break any laws, but use the same concept, the same type of ideal to get that information in front of your customer. If it attracted you, if it appealed to you, it probably appealed to somebody else. Advertising copywriters and advertising graphics designers have been doing this for years, so that when a client came in and said, well, I want something that looks like this, they go to their swipe file and they go, okay, this kind of image, this kind of headline, this type of copy, boom, you're good to go. Okay, so think in terms of swipe file. You also want to have a content calendar for your key messages. Think about the types of things you're saying, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, whether it's seasonally. What are the things that matter to your different customer types that are about what's going on in those different times of year? Now, this is a hotel example. There are others that are out there, right? This also gets to the fact of, somebody asked before, how often should we send emails? The answer might be, you know what, we have one group of customers who we're going to message, 4 times a year about these topics. We have a different group who we're going to send 4 times a year about these topics. We have a different group we're going to send 4 times a year about these topics. Oh, wait, the same email address might be on separate segments of our list. So everybody's getting different emails at different times, but some people might get, one a month or one every couple of weeks, because we have something to say that's relevant to which group they belong in. Don't think of your list as one giant list where everybody's the same. Think about it in terms of segments that have different needs. And are we segmenting it to send the right information to the right people? It will increase your open rates. It will increase your click-through rates. It will increase your conversion rates. Some best practices that you want to keep in mind. First, have a goal for every email. Again, this goes back to how often should you send. If you don't know, if you don't have something to say, don't say anything. Make sure you know what your objective is for every single email that you want to send. I worked for this very large company once upon a time, and I realized this is going to be a little bit different for some of you, but we had a goal. We specifically, it was a hotel company. We had a loyalty program, and we had an email campaign that was designed to increase people being part of our loyalty program. So we took our entire list of people where we had the email addresses, and all the people who we had email addresses for who were not part of our loyalty program, and sent them, various promotions to get them to sign up for our loyalty program. Partway through doing this, one of the senior leaders of the company said, "Well, how many reservations did we get from this?" And we said a very small number. I can't remember what the number was, but he said, "Well, that's crazy. We should stop doing this if we're not getting reservations." So we said that wasn't the goal. The goal was X. We achieved that goal and did a really great job. Here's all the emails we sent that did get reservations. And look, they achieved their goal too. But if we didn't want to do one of those two things, we didn't send an email at all because it didn't matter. We want to make sure we provide a strong, clear call to action for every message. I'm going to show you some examples of this in a moment. For your copy, align it with your content calendar. Make sure you know what you're going to say each time. Test the ratio of copy to images. For some businesses, you want to use a lot of images. For some, you want to use more text. It's going to vary, but make sure the text is easy to read on a phone. Make your images clickable. I cannot tell you how often I see people open an email, tap on an image, and nothing happens. Make sure people can actually click on the image. Test adding a sense of urgency. Do something now, right? And keep a swipe file so that you have things that they can do. Now, I mentioned before, how can you actually do, an email for everybody's birthday? Well, there's a thing called drip marketing, where you deliver potential customers a set of messages over a given period. So we set up our birthday email, and every email platform that I'm aware of will allow you to do something like that. You have a field that says, here's the person's birth date. And maybe you have a monthly one. It doesn't have to be the exact day because you might only ask them for the month of their birthday. But nonetheless, you have a campaign that is set up that every day or once a month, it looks for what is the birth date, and it automatically sends your predefined birthday email message to everybody where that criteria matches. It happens automatically. You can have a set when it happens when somebody signs up. The first email they get happens automatically when they sign up that says, here's welcome to our email list. Here's something as a bonus to you for doing so. 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, it automatically sends another one. 2 or 3 weeks after that, it sends another one automatically that you've tested over time to see what get the best response. And it drips these out over time, right? Make it really, really simple. Cultivates the relationship. Some benefits, it's evergreen. You build your content once and then it sends automatically every time new people meet the criteria. It ensures a consistent message, and it's auto-triggered, so it's cheaper for you over time. So just think in terms of, can we send these up? By the way, in some platforms, these are called autoresponders. So if you've not heard drip marketings or drip campaigns, think in terms of autoresponders, and it's the same thing. Does it match something? And it automatically sends it. All right, so we've captured, we've cultivated. Let's talk about convert. When we convert, we're really trying to remove friction between the customer goals and our business goals. This is the holy grail between what your customer wants and what you want. Obviously, you'd think these would overlap completely, but let's be fair, the customer probably wants it for free. You want to make money, so there's always going to be at least a little bit where you don't overlap completely. That's okay. Your calls to action in your emails should meet certain criteria. Think in terms of the size of it. Is it big enough and easy for them to click? Notice we've got a couple of different versions here. Think about the placement. Where does it show up in the email? Think about the verbiage. Notice both of these say shop now. That's probably been tested and they're finding it works, but you could say buy now, shop now, act now, learn more, whatever makes sense for your business. Think about the style. Is it a button or is it just a link? And think about the color. Is it something that's easy for people to read? Is it accessible? Remember that about one man in 12 is colorblind. So we want to make sure that we're not having colors that are low contrast to make it hard for people to see. We want to think in terms of focused message combined with a strong call to action. 15% off, deal of the week. I really like this one. This is a B2B e-commerce one. The call to action, you can click on the image, but if you scroll down, it says download our report. They're saying really, really clearly about what they want you to do. Okay. We want to make sure that the landing page we send people to continues the behavior. If you're not familiar with the landing page term, that's very simple. It's a page on your website that people land on when they click on the link. Continuation is a payoff on what you told them in the email. So this is a company called Serena and Lily. Notice they've got a summer tent sale, extra 20% off, click on shop now, and notice where I land, summer tent sale. It says what it said in the email. If it doesn't, if people see one thing in the email and then they click and they see something else on the landing page, they bounce, they leave. I see it all the time. So be aware that you're continuing the expectation when they see something in the email. Notice they even have the same graphic because they want to make it really clear this is the same deal. You don't always have to make every email commerce related. This is, again, my email that I send out that's very, let's educate you. Notice a lot of text. Here's things you want to know that are going on. This is Reverb. I love music. They're saying, learn how to record your guitar. I know from both my experience and what we see with other companies, we see better results over time based on the fact that we're actually talking to the right people and getting them engaged with wanting to open the email. Now, the last thing we want to talk about is how do we cleanse? How do we keep our data clean? Remember when I said data is the crown jewels? Well, I want you to treat customer data as though it's priceless, because it is. I want you to treat customer data like your business depends upon it, because it does. How many stories do we see every week where, there was one a couple of weeks ago, Marriott got hacked and a whole bunch of customer information got stolen. And that was really bad for Marriott. That's a business risk for them. You want to protect your customer data at all times. One of the reasons I recommend some of the platforms that I recommend is because they have good data security practices. They're protecting the data like it's the crown jewels. We want to think about how we maintain our list and our messages over time. Segment the list. We've got the group of people we send to for their birthday. We got the group of people we send to for their anniversary. We got the group of people we send to because they've opted in. They want to hear specific types of messages. We want to personalize over time the types of messages as we know more, as we've deepened the relationship. If people don't open, mark them as dormant. If you have somebody who's been on your list for 2 years and they never taken an action, go ahead and mark them as dormant. Stop sending emails after a while. You can send them what's called a reactivation campaign, where we send an email to people who have not opened an email for the last year. And we say, hey, you know what? We haven't heard from you for a long time. We haven't seen any action. You've probably seen emails like this. What can we do? Here's a 10% discount if you reconnect. And if they don't reconnect, tell them one last email that, we're going to delete your email address from our list within 30 days if we don't hear from you. So get rid of that data. That way, if you do get hacked, you don't have tons and tons and tons of old email addresses that aren't actually of any value to you and are actually creating bigger risk for your customers and bigger risk for you. Protect the data like it's the crown jewels. I mentioned this before, but you can benchmark. Notice I've got an industry average here. We saw that their open rates were very effective compared to the industry average. Obviously, we want to improve them every month. But we saw click-throughs, both unique and effective, were behind industry average. And we saw that their unsubscribe rates were a little high. So we tested different ideas to go ahead and make those things work more effectively. Now, with that, we've talked about how you collect. We've talked about how you cultivate. We've talked about how you convert. We've talked about how you cleanse. I want to make sure that I answer any questions folks have in the few minutes we have left. So are there any questions we can address?
All right, let's jump into that.
Any
right,
questions that
everyone,
came in earlier that we didn't answer?
let me see.
I think we covered all those.
Nope.
But...
No, doesn't seem like there's anything in the chat. So would love for everyone to please put your questions into the Q&A box.
Thank you, Christian. I just saw the comment in the Christian, a different Christian, not Christian Pichardo. So thank you, Christian Pichardo, for everything that you do, as always.
All right. Question came in. Nilda asks, how often should we be sending emails?
Yeah, it really depends. You should be sending them as often as your customers keep opening them, right? Watch your open rates, watch your unsubscribe rates. Unsubscribe is a big number to pay attention to. If you're sending too frequently or not frequently enough, you will see you'll see unsubscribe rates drop whenever you do send, right? If you're sending too much, if you're sending too little. So watch your unsubscribes over time and then make changes to your frequency based on that.
I'd love to add to that.
Please.
Just a little ninja trick is signing up to your top 3 competitors, and they have to be like market leaders. Signing up to their email list and seeing, dissecting everything from subject line to delivery times to all that.
Absolutely. 100%. Great tip. Any other questions?
Awesome. Yes. So we have Susie asks how to deal with your email address being treated / designated as spam or junk.
Yeah, this is a tough one. So there are some tools you can look at out there. So first of all, be on a reputable email service provider. Let's just start there. Bad email service providers will get listed as spam and junk more frequently. They have what's called a deliverability problem. So make sure that you're using an email service provider that has a good deliverability. The next thing is subject lines play a huge role in spam filters catching it. There are a couple of tools out there. I don't know the names off the top of my head, but I do have them bookmarked, and we can get those shared with folks that allow you to test your subject line before you send to see if it is likely to trigger a spam filter. And I apologize for not having the name of that off the top of my head, but you can test that. Some of the email tools, I know that MailChimp itself has that built in. I know a couple of other ones do. MailChimp's the one I interact with on the daily, so it's the one I do know has it immediately. But there are some of the email tools will do that right built into it. So test your subject lines to make sure that you've got a subject line that will pass by most spam filters. Okay.
Perfect. Kimberly asks, do you think marketing emails will be obsolete?
Well, Google's sure trying to make it that way, aren't they? No, I don't. I don't at all. And I have to tell you, I've been doing this for 26 years or something like that. And people have been asking that question for about 20 of those years. Every year it gets a little harder. Every year you got to provide better value to your customers to get them to sign up and want to get your email. But it comes down to high value. Think about all of the newsletters that are so popular right now that people are signing up for all over the case. It's just a case of providing high value content. And if you do that consistently, your customers will want to hear from you. So no, I don't think they will be obsolete. We just have to work to make sure we're providing the right kinds of content.
Awesome. We're at 1 o'clock, but I want to answer this last question that's here.
Sure.
Anne asks, any suggestions for content style or imagery for a web page or emails that tend to add value / improve engagement in general?
So I would strongly recommend you sign up and watch our past webinars on these topics. But I would also say, to Christian's point about sign up for your competitors, to my point about the swipe file, watch what people do that you really like and who are market leaders, and try to emulate them and learn from them over time. All right, so I know we're at 1 o'clock. I just wanted to say, to wrap up, please do remember the 4 C's: collect, cultivate, convert, and cleanse. Remember the tools that are available to you if you don't have an email list. Remember, of course, that your email list is the hub of what you do. Remember, of course, that if you don't have a list, you have no one to market to. So we always want to be growing our list. Keep the digital revenue formula in mind, that your visitors, your conversion rate, your customer lifetime value, when you multiply them all together, that equals revenue for your business. That your email marketing program depends first on the list, then on the subject line, then on the message. Remember that people read emails on their phones, so keep it simple, keep it snackable, keep it shareable, keep it sharp. Keep the king, the queen, and the crown jewels always top of mind. Think in terms of making sure you got the right call to action for your customer. Remember continuation and with your landing pages, so that when people click through, they get the experience that they want. Work on changing the relationship from short-term and transactional to the fairy tale romance. And then if you do that successfully, customers will want to receive your emails. They'll want to hear from you. They'll look forward to them, no matter whether you're first or the 3,854,166 and 2/3 email they get. With all that, I want to thank you all so much for your time, your attention, and your very great questions. And I'm going to turn it back to Christian to take us on home.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. Another great presentation. Let me go ahead and share with you guys what we have going on next week. So next week on Tuesday, we have Beverly Barman King. She's going to be joining us and showing us how to, or actually the 10 essentials to increase employee productivity. So if you have a team, might be 1 or 2, or might be a full-scale business that you have going on. These are things that will help you to improve productivity, which will obviously improve the performance of your business. You can go ahead and register for this event by scanning the QR code on your screen. I'll give you guys a minute to do that. All right. And we are the NJSBDC. We help 15,000 plus businesses. We help you with consulting, training and events, exclusive resources. To get started with us, go ahead to njsbdc.com/request-counseling. Remember, you'll get the slides and the on-demand recording of this webinar right after we close out this window. But thank you, everyone, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.